Hey, what's up, guys? Let's just go ahead and knock out the weekly scan here. It's going to be quick and efficient, so I'll just have all my levels, everything ready to go. This is going to be on Thinkorswim. I've kind of just like charting on this and using this as my primary charting thing, but very simple here, right? Downtrend line break, which we've emphasized back here on 912, 911. We did get that higher low. Remember, we took the day trade here, 918. We got that big pop, obviously, where we got a nice day trade, but now we're pulling back once again. Very similar to back here, where we had this diverging pullback. I think we're going to get the same exact thing, although not enough data yet. It is 2 days versus the 3 days here on that pullback, but it's pulling back into this 153.16 progression gap below very nicely. You guys can see bottom of the distribution zone, or the previous distribution zone, as well as support, right? Acted as a resistance. Now potential here to be a support again. Really nice. We have higher or a low, higher low, and I think this is the potential general realm for our third consecutive higher low, just in this range here. And I would like to just see it hold above 153. If you guys want to take this, I mean, 175, 177 is kind of the sweet spot that I'm looking at for calls. I'll probably use the 175 calls for like November, December. But yeah, this is going to be a pretty big focus for me, obviously going into next week. And then going forward, right? I just want to keep my eyes on this one. This chart's pretty explosive whenever it does have its upside moves. So yeah, definitely want to keep this one on watch. And then let's jump into the next one. Number two here is going to be MU. This one's a little bit different. It is obviously coming down to earnings that come on the 26th or the 25th, I believe. Remember, I talked about this one a lot, but it is very, very specific on what I want. I might start like 3 contracts on Monday in this general range here, right? Just this general pocket. Remember, this is very interesting because we are holding daily equal lows, right? So we have lows here on the daily, we have lows here built on the daily with a gap from, and then obviously earnings coming up where there's a potential for a liquidity sweep, right? A lot of buyers are probably buying this low and have their stops just below. It'd be very easy for a big entity, right, to bid down into this spot here. Earnings ends up happening, price gravitates towards those buyers along with simultaneous selling, right? They can get the fills here and then they can get all the inventory they need and then mark price up from here, right? So it would kind of do something like this, stop everybody, pop out, rebase that low, and then obviously start to have very big markups. And this is where I think we'll start seeing a lot of those gap ups occur. Obviously, remember, I would only keep this position very light if I am going to enter on Monday, just because of that potential. But you got to think this is going to be a huge targeted trade. Contracts are currently in like the 2.5s, I want to say, and I am looking at March 2025, so a lot of time on these contracts. And obviously, if we get that push all the way up to 130, or technically it's 127, I'm going to use the 130 calls. If we can get a push up to 130, that would be a 400% win. So really, really nice win there. You wouldn't really have to micromanage this. You would just need to make sure it stays in an uptrend and keeps having higher lows without making a low underneath 81.5. And it just pretty much be a hold in your account, right? And then waiting till that target. However, right, if this does drop down into 81.5 from earnings and it can open underneath either 83.88 or 81.5, those contracts, the same ones, the Marches, would go from 2.5 to around 1.4, 1.5. So they would get a 50% haircut. And then from that point, if we're able to get an entry in a full-size position, those contracts then have the opportunity to go about 700 to 800%. So really big opportunity there. I would probably go, remember I told you guys for swings, I've been trying to stick around 10 contracts so I can't expose too much of myself in these, same way I did with TSM. I would probably grab 15 of that just because those contracts would be cheap. It'd be so close to risk, and the risk reward and the opportunity that is there is just so worth having a little bit bigger position than I normally would have. So this is going to be a big one for me that I'll be watching. But remember, criteria is really 81.5. I need to see a sell-off from earnings. Obviously, I told you guys I have an equity position as well, where I'll look to add a majority of size at 81.5 as well. So I'll have both options and shares as well. But this could be a big play here. I don't really care. I know a lot of people have been kind of flirting with the idea this is a wedge. I don't care about that, right? This is setting up exactly like a lot of other names that we've seen where we have these daily equal lows, a liquidity sweeps down into the gap below, and that is really kind of like your spring, right? And then that gets accumulated and then it starts its markup. So this is a big watch going into the next week. All right, guys, Tesla now. This didn't fill the gap, so this did exactly what we wanted it to. Let's jump back just a little bit here. Remember, we ended up breaking through this resistance within this gap. I obviously still think it's going to trade to this gap fill at 246.38. And it gave us kind of like an inside bar and pulled back to 234.27. Now, it didn't quite get there. I'm hoping to get one more day where we just sell down a little bit more and actually touch the level, and that I'd be comfortable taking a position off of 234. I would risk, honestly, I probably wouldn't risk all the way to 225. I don't think we need to go that deep. I would risk either this candle open here, or I'd risk this candle low, right? So this is, I think this is 919, so Thursday's low. And I'll just kind of risk this general area. But yeah, like the position here off 234, still targeting 246.38. I would look for those 250 calls. And it's really just running the same trade twice. These are always really nice when you get a nice breakout like this, but it doesn't quite reach target, and then it gives you that pullback onto the resistance it broke. So nice double dip here. I'm going to be keeping my eyes on this one for the next 2 weeks. And this is also interesting too. I still have those contracts, guys, those December 300 calls. If we actually jump out a little bit further, this monthly is starting to really, really shape out here. Let's kind of pull it apart real quick. You guys can see we obviously broke the downtrend. We did have this liquidity sweep, like right around, what was it? I think this is July. You can see that we clearly faked that out, and then we pulled back. We really pulled into the 618 from the swing low to the swing high. We had that hammer candle, although it wasn't high volume, but now we're starting to trade above that August high weekly sell-off candle, right? Now we're really looking like we can close above this trend line here on the monthly. If we do that, I might size into those 300 calls, right? We have the Robotaxi event coming up. I can't remember the exact date. I probably should know this. I think it's October 10th. Maybe it's the 9th. So I'm really expecting some fireworks to happen there. If that does happen, it's pretty simple. I think we're going to have a trajectory up towards this gap here. Let's just snag this really quick so you guys can see what I'm talking about. Right, this is the only imbalance that's really left on the upside. I've talked about this. It was like the 250 mark, and then it was this one up here. So technically, right, we go from here to here. It's kind of like 291 to 279. That's the range I'm looking for. So the 300 call should pay really nicely. I think Robotaxi is the one that does it. That kind of sends us up through this lower high that was made back in July 11th. This was the fake sweep over the highs, right, of this trend line. And I really think we can break out to like 290 plus. So I will be looking for the potential add into the swing trade, right? Those December 300 calls, but also just a simple day trade to take this to this current gap at 250, right, or 246 using the 250 calls. Okay, I entered this one on Friday, and it actually had really nice success right off the bat. But I'm still looking for a pullback, guys. It's always fun to have these work in your favor right away. But really, it's just kind of like in this general range here, right? This is the markup through this gap down from CrowdStrike's kind of whole virus that ended up happening. If you guys remember, when a lot of the airlines went down, a lot of Microsoft Teams went down. This was really the catalyst for that sell-off. But during the sell-off, this was actually being purchased on very, very high volume, very similar to the QQQ3 lower low that we saw. And obviously we sold down. We had kind of like our bottoming out here. We broke out back towards this I guess mother candle high, or it's not an earnings candle, it is a footprint candle. We rejected that, we sold down for a higher low, and now we're breaking through this kind of mother candle, right? Now, this is a pretty, I would say this is smooth sailing to make its way back up from here to, I would say roughly there. We technically could use the close, but I'm just going to go with candle wick here. But this is kind of this whole range is truly imbalanced in my opinion. But I think we can make our way up to 343, 350 relatively quickly. But I saved a lot of my reserve adds for this pullback here. So this is very simple, right? It's just a simple pullback onto this rejection that we saw here of this kind of footprint mother candle, and then just look for a size in, and then look for a continuation up to 316.75. I'd probably take off half my position here and then save another half here with stops break even, ideally down here, right? So very simple trade here on Crowd. I think this keeps going. This is obviously an insane candle that we saw on the daily here. Some of the highest volume we've seen, one of the more harmonic breaks of resistance, so just looking for a diverging pullback. and this one looks good to go. So keep this one on watch still for those ads. I already know I posted about this. I'm not trying to kind of beat a dead horse, but this one looks so good. And don't take your eyes off because there isn't an opportunity to get more contracts on this. Okay, this is just kind of an update for this chart, but obviously ads are still applicable. Just need to see how this reacts, I would say this week. But yeah, just pretty much at the highs here, right? This is pretty much picture perfect accumulation that's been happening since 2022. We're in the markup phase here. Remember, we did get entry back here in this general range here. This was the progression gap base from this spot here, right? Just kind of mark it out really quickly. Not going to have the levels perfect, but yeah, this was the progression gap pullback added here. Obviously, I trimmed into this gap resistance at 77.05. Was that a mistake? Yeah, I think so, right? But it's okay. This is just a range that I probably should have just let it kind of trade through and see how it reacts to it because it's reacted pretty nicely. But a consolidation here, just some kind of, I would say, 3-4 day just consolidation, right? I don't have any other way to pull it. It doesn't need to have a pullback because it's already broken this spot, but just a consolidation, a cool down phase would be nice. And then look for it to obviously continue and have its markup towards 83.50, which is this gap up here. And then obviously the main target would be 88.98. If we grab the actual level, right, it's like just a little bit higher. It'll let me do it right around there. Oh, it's not letting me grab it. We'll just say 89.90, right? That's the strike that I have. I just think that's the target it's going to trade to. It is the gap right in that range. So this has a whole nother, in my opinion, section to push through. So if it can just give us a couple days of rest here against the 77 spot and really establish some kind of support here, I think this is a great opportunity to roll down, right? You don't really need to add into the current contracts we have. I know I'm down to just runners on those. We could theoretically add into those, just realize you're paying a lot higher premium versus this here or this here, right? I would just kind of pull it down in terms of expiration. So I'll look at like November, December contracts. And then try to target 90 or 85, right? I think the sweet spot would be the actual target of the gap fill or just midway through, right around 85, 86. So just going to keep this one on watch as well. Like I said, this is in the final phase of a markup from an accumulation, so this will happen very, very quickly. As you guys have seen with a lot of the upside moves here, this is pretty much moved through every single resistance, every single little previous range rather quickly, right? There's a lot of gap ups that have been happening here and just really strong days relative to the rest of the market. So it's important just for me to keep shop on watch here. Okay, and then we're going to look at TSM again because I do think this is like another prime entry here. If you guys, I'm sure a lot of you guys have seen it. I took profits here on this spike to 175 from 913. We pulled back. We held the top of the progression gap. You could argue, once again, I should have added down here again, but I don't know. Just coming off that loss that I did have, I just didn't feel comfortable. I would have rather have waited to 165. Did that happen? No, right? But we did get that big pop all the way back up to 175. I trimmed all the way down to runners here. I don't really have much left, but this is very interesting because we are rejecting this. We kind of close underneath this gap here at 176/175. And what are we doing, right? We're pulling back in that same exact fashion, albeit this is a little bit higher volume here on 920, but you have to think that that was the rebalancing as well. Nonetheless, though, right, it is still something to keep in mind. So I do think we see a continuation to the downside here, but I'm not afraid of this one, right? And actually, just kind of looking at this, I think this is a reaccumulation underneath the gap. I do want to show you guys because, you know, I'm not the biggest on like reaccumulations because it can be, I guess, I don't know. It can look like distribution, right, or redistribution at times, but I'm almost positive we're kind of like an LPS right now. And I think the jump the creek, right, or just kind of the markup phase is going to be either due to MU or something else. I don't know what kind of news is going to come out here, but this chart looks like it's going to pull back into that gap at 171.6. Keep in mind that's just the daily, right? We still have potential for it to push back to 168, although I don't think that happens. I really don't think it needs to revisit this inventory down here or this liquidity pull from 165 to 168. It feels like we pull back to that every time there needs to be new buyers. But I think they might have soaked up enough, right? The high volume here is kind of telling of that, in my opinion. But let's change this over really quickly. Let's turn that off and let's take a look here. Oh, can you guys even see this? It might not fit. Let's see if I can recalibrate this. There we go. Tell me that doesn't look almost exactly like our friend over here, right? If we go back to this, I mean, it looks eerily similar. If I drew the trend lines, right, we kind of have this like falling wedge formation from this 175 rejection, where we sold down rather quickly into this progression gap. We had our one of our higher volume days on this these two bearish engulfing candles, right? And then if we kind of jump back again, right, that could have been our spring underneath that old daily equal low. Obviously, we didn't come all the way down to the August 5th sell-off, which I'll show you guys. We didn't come all the way down here, but it looks very, very similar. And remember, it doesn't have to always be the exact schematic as long as it rhymes and the volume kind of matches up with it. It looks, dude, this thing looks kind of very, very similar. And obviously, since that, we had our pop. We pulled down in for our LPS, right, in which I'll move it back again really quickly. And I think we just might have our jump the creek, right? And it looks like we have this one more pullback that's going to form here. If not, right, I think this might have been the LPS and go. But I'm really comfortable taking this once again, adding in off kind of like this 170, 160. So meaning I'll add on Friday, or I'm sorry, Monday, and into this 170, 160 to kind of build my position again. Obviously, I'll still risk 165, but I'll be comfortable adding from 171 to 168, right? That's kind of what I'm getting at. And then obviously we want something like this. Picture perfect world is a markup like that. Finally break this 175 resistance, and then boom, we're gone, right? If that doesn't happen, I would expect this to sell a little bit lower, push back up, maybe base this gap here, and then breach 175. Same thing, right? Kind of a big pop from there. All in all, though, I still like TSM's chart. This thing looks like it's been brewing a move for a very long time. And when that ends up happening like this, guys, and we have constant pulls into this liquidity here, right, which is that 165 to 168, we have sell-offs into progression gaps that kind of formulate those higher time frame structure, kind of looks overall in the chart. This thing looks like it's really just built a healthy chart, and it looks like it's ready to go. So 185, 186 remains to be that target, which is, yeah, 186. We could round that up even a little bit more too, to like 188. But this looks pretty fucking good. So TSM is still on watch as well to get ads. And I just wanted to start it like from like new positions that I want to take on. And then as you guys can see, I went to Crowd, I went to Shop, I went to TSM, which are things that I currently have, but I've diluted down what were either half or full positions that I've trimmed down to runners, where I can now add into these as well. So these are all going to be kind of like my main ones. Take it for what it is. If you guys want to join the party, awesome. If not, no worries as well. I know TSM obviously took us for a doozy, but I wasn't wrong about any of this, right? And that's what I was saying in my last video, is the hard trade is usually the right trade, easy trade is usually the wrong trade, right? And this has been not necessarily a hard trade, it's just been an area where we had a big support temporarily fail and then reclaim back above, but it was still within our means of it being a higher low, right? In a very healthy chart. Which is why I've been advocating so much for just getting time on contracts and not buying into breakouts or buying into consolidation phases necessarily, but being also willing to buy on sell-offs, right, into discounted entries that are still very healthy charts, right? And I should have added more into this down here. Just looking at this still pains me, but not afraid of this chart still. I still love this chart. And like I said, back to this kind of schematic play out here. This kind of looks exactly what we're looking for, or what we're looking at on TSM here. So let's look at one last chart. It might be something I nibble on. I don't really like China names. If you guys didn't know, I hate China names and I hate crypto names. I'm red year to date on I think all things crypto, like miners and Mara. I think I'm green on Riot, but Coin and obviously Baba is a big no-no for me as well. I think I'm red on all the China names as well. Oh no, JD I'm green on. JD, and I think I might be green on Billy or one other one. But let's take a look at Neo. Yeah, this is actually a good one because I don't really have this charted out. It's kind of from scratch, which I know a lot of people like to see me do. But naturally, I would just kind of go through, and I'm just going to hastily do this, mark kind of like my imbalances on the chart. I'm just going to go from the dailies as well. So 1022.96, we know this didn't fill. I don't think that's going to happen anytime soon. Maybe an earnings could do that. But naturally, just kind of looking at the chart, we've been in a downtrend. We've had lower highs. We've obviously been making lower lows. But obviously, it looks like we've kind of flatlined in this general area. So now what we're looking for is what? I'll let you guys answer that. Let me take a drink of my thing here real quick. Okay, so if you guys didn't know, we're looking for a change of character, right? So we obviously want to start seeing higher lows formulate against this relative low that's formed here on the daily, and then from that higher low, we want to see what? A break of a lower high, right? And that would kind of be your break of structure that we're looking for. And you could also target that. But this looks decently good. After the sell-off, we've noticed some pretty good buying kind of occurring for these breakouts here. You guys can see this on the volume. But we've had high volume at the lows, but really no lower low made, right? So that could be the sign of a bottoming. And then we're seeing a lot of activity for this push into this flag here. And there's been a lot of volume here, but a lot of the red candles, as you guys can kind of see here, have been a mitigated sell volume, right? We're not making a low, and we're kind of staying high and tight here. So I would actually just be watching this just to see if we can get a break. And I know this might disappoint a lot of you guys. A break of structure here, right? A break of structure over 604. If you guys want to trade this flag or whatever you guys want to call this, right? Be my guest. It doesn't really matter to me. Really, I don't like to jump into charts until we get a break of structure. I pretty much trade the same thing over and over again. Think Starbucks, think Nike, think, I mean, I've done it so many times. Roku, Shop. I do the same thing over and over again. Until then, I'm not really interested because this chart is still only making lower highs. So I would like to see this flag personally break out. And if it can reclaim 6, I think we can easily move back into this small imbalance up here too. Right, so 6 to, let's just mark this out really quickly. Let's go here. Right, this looks pretty good. 6 to 7 would not be a bad move. And if we kind of extend this really quickly, this isn't going to be the perfect gap, but I'll kind of show you guys what we're looking at here. Right there. You guys can hopefully see that. This is a previous support that looks like it's been built out over a couple weeks, maybe even a month or so. What's the exact time? So September till, yeah, okay, so a couple months. So this could return back to that floor, but I would really like to see this flag break out, reclaim 6, pull back base 6, which would be your break of structure, and then I think we can move to 7, right? So something just to kind of keep on watch here. I think NIO does have an opportunity, but really just playing it by ear. I want to see if this chart can prove to me that it's willing to get out of this nasty downturn it's in. I think a lot of people might be too quick to jump in on this because it's a flag, and a lot of people have been taught to trade flags a certain way. But yeah, just needs to claim this lower high here. And you can see that lower high, even though I didn't look at it on the, I only looked at it on the daily. On the weekly, looks pretty damn good, right? I mean, this was a weekly confluence from 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, I mean, multiple weeks, even more than that, 6 or 7 weeks. So this could be a really good opportunity to catch. What's the percent on that? If we can get 6 to 7, it would be a little bit more. Yeah, about a 20% move. So that would be pretty nice. So just keep this one on watch. I would set alerts on a break above 604, and then just kind of watch it from there.